Daily Rambam for Tuesday, Chav Gimel Cheshvan, Tavshin Pei Aleph, the 16th Perek Shisha Aser of Hilchos Shabbos. So today, just like yesterday, we're continuing with halachas relating to Rishuyas and Mechitzas, as we shall see. So we start with the halacha of a makom shloi hukaf ladira. Halacha aleph makom shloi hukaf ladira. So there's a space, it has mechitzas around it, but not for the purpose of living there. Ela sheyeh tashmishay la'aver. Instead, it's used for the space itself. Kudan ginais upardesim. So, for example, gardens, orchards. So it's not for living, but you use the space. You have a wall around it because you use it for its space.
Like a park with a fence, something like that?
Yeah, like a park. Or you just have a space that you want to sort of wall off from people. You want it to be protected. You shouldn't be able to go there, but there's nothing, you're not using it for anything in particular. So if the mechitzas are 10 tvachim high, which is the share, so it's like a rishus hayachid in the sense that if you take something out, or vice versa, you bring something in, you throw something out or in, you reach out or in, rishus harabim, and back into it, that's it's considered rishus hayachid. However, when it comes to carrying inside, but you can't carry throughout it like a regular rishus hayachid unless it's the exact size of 2 sa'ah or less. But if there's more than 2 sa'ah, also the taltul boy ela ba'arba amis kakarmelis. So when it comes to carrying inside, we don't treat it like a rishus hayachid anymore. We treat it like a karmelis, so you can't carry more than 4 amis. Mishnah says that it's clear throughout the Gemara that it's considered rishus hayachid min ha-Torah. And however, the tiltul is also something it discusses a lot. That the tiltul is not, I'll clearly tell Chachamim we're treating it like a karmelis. Halacha beis, expanding on this idea. V'chein omod shegavaya asar v'racha beis hasayim metaltal al kula. We learned in Perek Daled, if you have an omod, a pole, a pillar b'shus harabim, if it's 10 tvachim tall and 4 tvachim wide, that's a rishus hayachid. Doesn't need mechitzas. Just being an amud with those dimensions is rishus hayachid. So if it's 10, and instead of just being rachav arba, it's rachav beis hasayim, metaltal al kula, up to beis hasayim, you can carry like a rishus hayachid. Hoyer rachav beis hasayim, if it's more, then metaltal beil barbam is same rule, same concept that once it gets that big and it's not for a dira. So that's the din. Sela shabayam, you have a rock in the ocean. Hoyer gavaya pachas me'asara. If it's lower than 10, metal yam karmelis. You can put if you're stranded somehow on a rock, you can take from the water and put it back and forth because it's all one big karmelis, the rock with the water. Can't go more than 4 amas though. But if it's already 10, but if it's 10 tvachim high, so we're treating it like a rishus hayachid, it's 4 or more. So now all of a sudden you can't carry from rishus hayachid to a karmelis, from a karmelis to rishus hayachid. The ocean is rishus, and the yomud is another rishus. And now here comes the interesting catch. So when it's more than sasayim, so now min ha-Torah to rishus hayachid. When it comes to carrying, we treat it like a karmelis. The ocean is the karmelis. So can I take things from the ocean and bring it here? On the one hand, it's really rishus hayachid. On the other hand, I treat it like a karmelis. So the din is, I'll be sure rishus hayachid, but hoyel v'asa the taltul b'yel ba'ar b'amis karmelis. Hariz mutar the taltul mitoicha layam u'min hayam l'toichai. So since Chacham said you're not allowed to carry more than 4 amas and you treat it like a karmelis, so they also extended this heter, this kula, that you could carry from it to the ocean, from the ocean to it. It's not very common, so they weren't geyser. So the Maggid Mishnah says, from the Rambam it sounds like, this special heter to carry from the Rambam didn't use the word karpif, but in Chazal it's called the karpif yosem beis hasayim. And karpif just refers to some kind of space, that's not a dira. So from the language it says from the Rambam, it sounds like that this heter to carry from this karpef to the carmelis is only with a sela bayam. But let's say you had this karpef next to a carmelis on land, it would be usher to carry between the two, and that's the Ravid's opinion as well elsewhere. Taisus, however, say that hu adin lekarmelis b'yabasha. So therefore, if you have a gina, which is a karpef, yosher beis hasayim, next to a carmelis, you can carry, and let's say the key to the gina is in the carmelis, you're allowed to take the key from the carmelis and go to open the gina, because they have similar dinim, they're next to each other. So just like the rock in the ocean, so the gina and the carmelis. Look in Shulchan Aruch and Simon Mem Vav. It's the Takada, but it changes. The Mechaber changes it, and doesn't say like the Rambam Sela and Yam. He says a karpef you're not allowed to carry. Umuter lo haitzi mimenu lekarmelis acher going bika hoiveres lafonov. He talked the example that Mechaber gives is a carmelis a bika, not the Yam. And the Ramah says v'lochin muter to take the mafteach, the same example that Taisus gave, to take the mafteach from the carmelis to the gina.
Yeah, but the Rambam stressed because it's a dover shein in Motzi. But if we're talking about the carmelis, the way the Maggid Mishnah says, where Taisus says it's really it doesn't have the issue of the dover shein in Motzi.
So okay, that's Gemara's case was Sela Shabayam, and the Gemara said dover shein in Motzi. The question is, how far do we extend that? If you look at the Beis Yosef there, right? So the Mechaber didn't go with the way it's written in the Rambam. He seemingly went with Tosfos. You look in the Beis Yosef though, in the Simon Shemon Vav, which does on the Torah. So the Torah wrote, "Mish Gina Yasser and Beis Hasayim." That was how the Torah wrote. So he writes, "Kain Koser Shem Tosfos V'Harash." Hagoyis Maimoni is here in the Rambam. Agam Rav Magid Kosav that the B'Shem the Rashba that could be any carmelis. The Kosav Oid from the Rambam is mashma that they weren't matir only for the Yam, but not by Yabasha. And the Beis Yosef says over there, "Any idea meichen diksher Rambam sefer." I don't know why he decided that Rambam holds that. If the imishum shlehiskel is Sela Shabayam, if it's just because the Rambam only mentioned the case of Sela Shabayam, listen to Bryce of the Gemara nakat. The Rambam always goes with the lashon of the Gemara. So if you can verteich the Gemara, you can verteich the Rambam. Why are you saying that the Rambam holds one or the other? After the Huadin. If you look in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch as well, the Alter Rebbe in Simon Shemon Vav also says that karpef you're allowed to carry to the carmelis gemura like a bika, and they're only legozir kan kamesh gozir al tiltul mishar shosayach le carmelis. Says if you shachosh you can. The Alter Rebbe adds another detail which may be in the Gemara, but we didn't see this detail until now. The Rambam says it's not just whether we're the other way, whether it's a darish any matzah. There's a problem if you say that you're not allowed to carry from here into there. Because why? If you say it's also to be metaltal from the karpef, then it looks like you're treating it like a Rosh Hashanah. Then they're going to think, oh, so it means I could carry. If you tell me I can't carry from here to the bika, so then this is not a carmelis at all. They're going to carry inside here. So I rather say that you're allowed to carry from the carmelis to the carmelis, and that will make sure that I won't end up being carrying inside. In fact, that you have to choose one over the other. You have to either be mevatel, either you bring mevatel the isser to carry from one to the other, but because you're more concerned about them carrying inside. Why do you care more? It says, so it's that's part of the calculus, and not just the davar sheni matzah. Carrying from there to there is less matzah than carrying inside, so we care more about making sure it's clear that this has a din carmelis. Moving on, halacha gimel. What is the shear of a beis hasayim? Pashat the math. Kama he beis sa'ah. Let's start with a sa'ah, right? Sa'ayim is 2 sa'ah. What's 1 sa'ah? Chamishim ama or chamishim ama. 50 by 50. Nimtza beis hasayim. Now what's 50 times 50? 50 times 50 is 2,500. So if you have 50 amma, you have 2,500 square ammas. So what's double that? Nimtza beis hasayim. What's double 2,500? 5,000. Makam sheish b'shiburoi. Following this, these calculations, chameshis alafim amma. So that's all. That's the real number you need to know. If you want to know what's based on, all you have to know is 5,000 square ammas. In any year that has this measurement, whether it's a perfect square, what would be a perfect square? Shu shivim ushyarim al shivim ushyarim. It's a little bit more than 70 and a little bit less than 71. So 70 point something times 70 point something is 5,000. 70 times 70 is 4,900, and I think, and 71 is already 5,000 and something, so somewhere in between.
In the sizes of society.
We're saying that if it's base of Saim or less, you're allowed to carry, even if it's not for a dira, base of Saim and more than base of Saim, you're not allowed to carry. So what's the shear? So we're saying it's 5,000 square amas, whether it's an actual square, which would be 70 point something by 70 point something, whether it's a circle, or any other shape, harei ze nikra base Saim. However, imagine you have a place like this. If the length is twice the width, right, so we said if it's base of Saim or less, you're allowed to carry. So that includes if it's 100 by 50, right? We said 50 by 50 is a sa'ah. What's double 50 by 50? 100 by 50. That's 5,000. So if it's exactly that shape as a rectangle, like the Chatzar HaMishkan, which is 100 by 50, then you're still allowed to be metaltal. But if it gets even more stretched out, if the length is even greater, more than double the width, even by one amma, then again you're not allowed to carry, even though it's not based on Saim. Again, we don't give it that treatment. Also based on Saim, the whole concept of the base of Saim, of the space that's not for dira, it's just for Aver, it's based on the Chatzar HaMishkan. So I'll quote a bit from the Alter Rebbe that explains it a bit clearer. So first of all, the Maggid Mishnah says that this whole Sasayim comes from the Chatzar HaMishkan, which was made on Chamishim, and the Cheshbon comes out to 5,000, and that's how the Rambam said what he said. Look in the Alter Rebbe in Siman Shin and Ches, Mamish breaks it down. He says the Chatzar HaMishkan was 100 length, 50 width, so that's 2 times 50 times 50. 50 times 50 is a sa'ah, that's 2,500, double that is 5. And then he says, whatever, any area that has that shear, whether it's round, whether it's square, and he says, the Maggid Mishnah said that what's the shirayim? He said it's 5/7. The way the Alter Rebbe says it is, it's 2/3. Obviously, both are close to each other. But choshu chacham ledaktik boy. Right. Well, that would depend on exactly how much.
What's the number?
Right. So somewhere between a foot and 2 feet, right? Yeah. So
is 18 inches.
Something like that. Yeah. Then the Alter Rebbe says, "V'sam chacham shiurim elu l'shiurei chatzar hamishkan v'shekol malachas Shabbos v'chesel ulameid mimishkan." We're learning this all from the Mishkan. The chatzar hamishkan gam ken lo yahaya mukaf l'dira v'hay metaltal mekulei. Where does this whole din of karpei pachas beis Sayim? If you have a problem with a carpet, if it's not mukaf l'dira, then you shouldn't be able to carry no matter what the size is. Why did we draw the line at base of Saim and say that you can't carry when it's a little bigger than that, you can carry when it's smaller? You know why? Because the whole thing comes from the Mishkan. The Mishkan was not mukaf l'dira, and yet, of course, you're being a talpul inside the Mishkan. So so any carpet that's the size of the Mishkan, Chachamim didn't want to be Eiser. Really, they wanted to be Eiser, but you can't say something that's going to be the same size as the Mishkan. Then you're not allowed to carry.
This 5,000 square foot area, whether it's the Mishkan or whether it's not the Mishkan, it has a fence or no fence.
We're talking about the hukaf, but not Ladira. It has a fence, but not for a dira. It has to have a proper mechitza. That's why we treat it like a Rosh Hashanah. Lagabe Haitzah from one Rosh to the other.
So if this is the limit, how do you matter an Erev around the whole year?
Erev where?
Around the city when they put the.
That's diras. We're talking about specifically.
Dira. Okay, so this is, if it's empty.
Dafka empty, just for Avir. So really, Chachama wants
like a forest area. It would be limited as to what type of an
area.
area.
Well, we're going to get to plants in a second. Plants has its own
it's
thing.
just like an empty field.
Yeah, I mean, you said pardesim, gina, so yeah, I mean, it's probably trees, whatever. Yeah. So the idea being that
The park has its limits.
that could be an issue. Yeah. So the idea being that as long as it's similar to the Mishkan, then it's mutter to carry. Once it's larger than the Sasayim, or once the shape is so the rectangle is so elongated that it's not like the Mishkan anymore, then you can't carry anymore. Now, how can you make this place kosher? How do you fix it? Halacha hey, makom shehukav shalei l'shem dira. What if the walls were put up for the wrong purpose, and now you want to fix it? If you made a hole in the wall that's more than 10 amas long and 10 tvachim high, and then you went back and refilled that space and said, this time I'm putting the wall up because I'm making a dira inside. Mutter the talta b'kulei, now you can carry inside again because now it's ladira. Meaning, though, that if you just built a house inside without replacing part of the wall, that's not going to be enough. You would need to replace part of the wall. This is a way to be matir the area. If it was hookup shleila dira, now you want to be makafit l'shem dira, you don't have to knock down the whole entire wall and build the whole wall again. You make a pirza in it that's considered that's mevatel mechitza, right? Because any mechitza, if you make a hole that large, you're mevatel the mechitza. And then you replace that part of the mechitza. Now you say, by now I just replaced the whole mechitza for the right reason. Even if you did an amma at a time, you broke an amma and replaced it for a dira. Over and over again, one at a time. Until you got to more than 10, then you can carry it inside the whole thing. Even if it's miles large, as long as there's a dira inside, it's for dira. Then even if it's miles large and you did even amma at a time, you're okay.
So one dira would matter.
Yeah.
That's
a dira. Well, okay. So now the question is, though, that Rambam never actually mentioned about putting the dira in. Other Makaridas come later. They mentioned, but the dira here that Rambam just mentioned that you're being geider l'shem dira. So that actually starts a discussion. The Magen Mishnah says that the Gemara also is not clear that way. The Gemara just says karpav shlehukaf peiretz boy v'goydrei. That's all it says. And the Rambam added v'goydrei l'shem dira. However, Rashi goes much further and says first you have to build a dira. You actually build one, and then everything else we said. Then you make the pirza, and then you are going together. This is Rabbeinu kasav memna kipashta. The Rambam just wrote goydrei in l'shem dira. It says minir midvanav shakel talui bekavanas agadarim imnasu al das dira. It's all up to your thought when you're making the wall. If you have a mind, this is l'shem dira. I have a dira in mind. It says vinira that the kavana also still not going to help unless your das is to actually make some form of dira. What are you thinking about? You got to be thinking. Avamaya died to the karpev. And there's no base dira. How can the Rambam say that thinking about a dira is going to help if you mechav l'davar she'i afshar?
Intent. Your intention has to be.
But intention for what, though? Intention for some kind of actual dira.
Right.
But without an actual dira, it sounds like. As long as there's a kavana and there's some actual dira involved.
Intent means that eventually, not this week, next week I want to go back.
So he says, v'dvar of tzarech li'ian, and he says that Ashba says that... No, I just said the Rambam being tzarachian for the Magen Mishnah. If you look in the Alter Rebbe says again it was Siman Shin Nun Ches that Mo'al Hukaf L'Dira, that first you made a sukkah shomrim that the shomer lives in Bayem B'Walayla, or you made a base dira even if you're not darba kvias, and then you put mechitzas around it. And b'shas asiyas mechitza tiyas yiras l'dira. And when you make the mechitza, you have to have a mind that's for a dira. And lafichach, at first you built mechitzas and then you built the dira, lo yohel klum, didn't help. And even if you had a mind, afilim b'shas asiyas mechitzas hoya b'daita yishoyisel l'shem kach livnei's boy achar kach ein zem yohel klum. The Alter Rebbe says clearly that if you built the mechitzas and you had a mind, I'm going to build a dira later, doesn't help.
And what is the Rambam saying?
I'm just said gadar b'al l'shem dira, very vague.
What before he built the mechitzas, after he built the mechitzas?
We're talking about you built mechitzas. The Rambam is very talking about a case. You built the mechitzas and you're paid a pirza, and now you're being geider the pirza and you're being geider l'shem dira. That's all the Rambam says. The Rambam doesn't get into all the.
See, not the Alter Rebbe is just elaborating.
No, the Rambam is saying clearly. Afilim b'shas asiyas and mechitzas haya b'daita she'oisel l'shem kach livnei's boy achar kach ein zem mo'el klum. The Rambam says clearly, if you had just the mind that you're going to build something later inside. When you made the mechitzas, Never mind if you're being guided to the parrots. He's talking about when you read the Mechitz originally, but the same with me. If you're being guided to the parrots, if you just have in mind that you're going to build something and you didn't actually build it yet, in Zamayel Klum.
It seems like that the Rambam says differently, because the Rambam doesn't say that there has to be eventually a dira being made there.
It's just very unclear. Like I said, the Gemara was even less clear. The Rambam is a little more clear. Still leaves it vague. You have these other mechanics. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but eventually means you gotta come through with your kavanah.
Well, we have to deal with it now because
however, if you look in the Mishnah Brura here in Simon Sheneches, the Mishnah Brura writes V'da tim chosha b'feidish b'shah shehikif l'makam hazeh sheyivnu v'yvayas achar kach v'akarpef hazeh yiyeh kamei chotzer. If you had in mind b'feidish, I'm building a house here, and this whole karpef is just going to be a chotzer to that bias. Efshe sheyesh lahakol v'loymar demikri mukaf l'dira sharei hikif ha'isel l'shem dira. You're building your whole estate. It's different parts. You're building the chutzah, you're building the bias, you're building the mechitzas. So maybe even Alter Rebbe would be made if it was very clear that you're just everyone dafka builds their house before they build their gate. Maybe you built your gate before you built your house, but it was all part of a project. You were building halacha vav. Now we come to the issue of Makam Yasim Beis Hasayim Shehukav Adira. Let's say it is for living. However, Nizra Rubai, if most of the space though is used for plants, Hareu Kagina, then it has the same din as what we've been talking about, but also the Taltal Bekula. Even though you said it's for Adira, but most of it is a Gina, you're not allowed to carry. Nizra Miyute, what if it's not the right of the space, it's the Miyut? Then, or less, if it's a saim or less, you're allowed to carry. And if it's more than two then still also the taltal b'kulei. So the ziraim really can mess up rishus hayachid. You have a rishus hayachid with ziraim, a big patch of ziraim. If it's roiv or beis saim or more, it turns it into the karmelis for tiltal.
Even if your house is attached to it.
Even if there's a dira there, yeah.
Then it has a din of dira.
You should make a mechitza around your dira that excludes the ziraim.
Why excludes?
Because ziraim, if it's one big mechitza with ziraim, then
and your house is in there.
Obviously, you can carry in your house. So your house has its own mechitzas. But the chotzer.
So the concept of the garden attached to my house is not considered my rishus hayachid.
If it's nizdar rubai or yasim beis hasayim, then you might have a problem. But it's dafka ziraim. Ziraim is, you will see, we're going to...
Edible plants or just plants of beauty?
So we're making a distinction now. Not taruba, if it's natias, if it's trees. So the ziraim sounds like a place where you wouldn't go. It's like grain or something like that, I would imagine.
Okay.
Probably not grass. Something that wouldn't be royal adira.
Okay, got it. Okay.
But natias, though, even though you can't live in it, but natias is considered more of something you have in a place where you live. You have trees.
So now it makes sense. You have, for example, somebody owns a farm and he has his house on the farm.
Yeah.
So the farmland was already a separate entity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now if it's trees, if it's natias, then or things that we consider natias, then you can carry. This mali mayim afilu if it was water. That filled up with water, even if it's very deep. If the water is usable, then we treat it like trees and things like that. It doesn't mess up the rishus hayachid. And if you can't use the water, then it's like zeroim and it also ruins it. Now, all of this leads to the question of what about the oil? People go to the oil on Shabbos, and you have the oil. Let's say that's a dira. And then you have all the kvarim, which is not really royal adira. So will we treat the kvarim like zraim? That's the question. So this has come up. Also, b'chalal is like a karpef. So I saw that the Dayan Rabbi Raskin wrote about this 10 years ago in the Haaretz of Yorim, Gillian number 1000. He says it was Shabbos at the oil, and one of the Rabbanim there said, "Is there a problem of karpef?" Because if it was loy hukaf ladira, which could also be the problem here. Let's say when they first built the Beis HaKvaris, it wasn't considered a makim of dira, right? And let's say we came along later and we built makremis of dira. But if the mechitzas of the Beis HaKvaris are still there from before, so it wasn't hukaf ladira, so that would be problem number one.
Where are we considering the deer over here? Not the oil itself.
No, but there's the space that people use to
The house that's at the side.
The place where people sit and eat and verbring or whatever.
Okay, so that's the house, and it happens to have an entry into the cemetery.
Yeah. So the question though would be the cemetery itself, was it hooked up with Dira or not? Fine.
Finished. Finished. That cemetery was built with gates all around it. That happens to be that the houses were built next to the cemetery. So we bought a house, we knocked out a hole, made a door, and it leads to the cemetery. But they had to get special permission for that from the cemetery people.
Okay.
That means it's not the cemetery had nothing to do with Dira.
So there might be a problem. So he says, Lamer Zogan, though, let's assume that maybe something was done along the way to rectify that. They made a pirza and they filled it up. We don't know. But the ha'ara was, what about the kvarim? Are the kvarim like zraim? So he says he looked into it and he found already that the Shas Shuvas Machaneh Chaim and Reb Chaim Sefer of Munkach asked this, and he said that we find in Chazal that this halom de Beis HaKvaris, someone who sleeps in the Beis HaKvaris, even though it's not really such a great thing to be lom Beis HaKvaris, but we see there's such a concept, so it is a shtickle royal adira. It's not like zraim. Zraim, you wouldn't sleep in zraim. Right. Anyway, so that's it's interesting shot. Okay, let's try to move along here. So let's say you have such a place that was not l'shem dira and has 3 sa'ah, the keru boy beis sa'ah, and there's a roof over a sa'ah. Kiruyoy matiroy. The roof is matir that part. Shepitikra yedid v'saisim. We say that that side of the wall, even though there's not a wall on that side, but the ceiling, it's like it goes down like a wall. Nifratz b'maloya l'chatzer. This is a bit of a tricky halacha, but there's a carpet like this next to a chatzer. So nifratz b'maloya l'chatzer v'nifratz l'chatzer connected. So it sounds like that basically together the carpet and the chatzer are now connected. Part of the wall is missing. Chatzer materes k'shahai. Now they're like sharing some of the air. So the chatzer materes k'shahai. So the chatzer stays the same. The carpet also k'shahai, and the carpet stays the same. She'ein aver chatzer matira. Being connected to the chatzer doesn't change anything here. Okay. Halacha ches. Let's say you have a space that's more than the base of Sayim, and you want to, instead of making a dira, you simply want to shrink the space inside until the space inside is less than 2 sa'ah, and then it'll be mutter again. So balamata be honest, you want to use trees. It's not a miyut. Banaboy amud b'tzara kaisa. 1 second. So the Maggid Mishnah says, the Rashba says that the time is that you always plant trees in a karpef. So it's not taking away from the karpef. A karpef has trees in it. So by putting a tree, you didn't take away from the karpef space. It says, there could be other things like that. If there's a burr in the gina, the burr doesn't take away from how you measure the gina. Things like that. Moving on in the Rambam. Let's say you built a pillar near the wall. If it's 10 tvachim high and 3 tvachim wide or more, then it's mamayit from the space. Pachas mishleisha eine miyut. Pachas mishleisha eine miyut. Less than 3, it's not. Shekol pachas mishleisha kalavadu. Less than 3, we just say it's part of the wall. So you didn't really add anything. And the same as if you actually made the mechitza 3 tvachim away from the wall, then it also can take away from the space. Pachas mishleisha, but if you made it within 3 of the wall, it's like part of the wall, so nothing changed. If you put mud on the wall to make the wall thicker, and that takes away a little bit from the space inside. Even that tit couldn't stand on its own, only attached to the wall, it does take away from the space. And the Maggid Mishnah says, Yish v'kan shaila. You said before that if you made a mechitza near the wall, it doesn't count. It's considered bottled to the wall. You put tit on the wall, now you're saying it is b'mayit. Well, what's the difference? Why is the tit not bottled to the wall, but the mechitza is bottled to the wall? And you have to, Yesh lahashiv that when you have when you have it separate from the wall, you still see it as a full karpev. And now the question is, what this mechitza is doing when you add it to the wall itself? So it's like there was never a base of sign. Okay, you can think about it a bit more to explain what the difference is. is also not super clear. But if you have there's a tail involved, there's a mound, and that's part of this karpef. So if the mechitza is away from the tail, then the mechitza could be a good mechitza and then can be a factor here. Also, mechitza al svasa tail, but if mechitza is on the mound itself, ain't a mile, because the tail itself is like a mechitza. She'aisa mechitza, gal mechitza, ain't a mile, mechitza on top of another one doesn't do anything. But if nivla mechitza tachtayin avayalinakim, but if the bottom one sank, and then all we have left is the one you built on top. Because the bottom, the tail itself was not l'shem dira. The thing on top was l'shem dira. When you built it, it wasn't good because it was a mechitza gal mechitza. But now that it came down, all you see is the one you made for the right reason, and it is a hayal that worked, and with the top you can carry it everywhere. Halacha Yud Rechava Shacheri Abatim. You have a space behind your house. You say al beis asayim larger than the size. Imitalpum ba'al bar ba'amis. You can only carry 4 amis. Even if the door opens into it, it's like your backyard. But that came later. But at first you made a door there, and this is your backyard, and then you made a gate around it as your backyard. Then we say that it's all an extension of your house. Then you could carry. Halacha Yud Aleph is also not especially clear. You have a space that's open to the city on one side, and on the other side it's open to a road that goes to a river. So the halacha is you put just a halachi there on the city side. Apparently the halachi acts as a form of hukaf ladira. By putting the halachi there, you're saying this is ladira, and now you can carry in the whole thing, and from there into the city, and from the city into it. The Maggid Mishnah says, this is not a common halacha to get into at length. Like, not everything needs equal treatment, apparently, according to the Maggid Mishnah. Halacha Yud Beis and Yud Gimel, now moving on to a bit different. Someone is spending Shabbos in just an open space, and he made a mechitza around him. So if it's smaller than beis asayim, you can carry in the whole thing. If it's more than that, you can only carry 4 amos. And the same if there's 2 together in that space. But if you have 3 or more, that they're already a caravan, if there's a mechitza, they can carry whatever they need, even miles around. But you can't have any given space that's beis asayim large within that enclosed area that has nothing in it. But if there's a beis asayim within that enclosed space that it's completely empty and they don't need it, also the then that ruins the whole thing, and you not have to carry inside the whole mechitza el bar ba'amis. So make sure that it's just the space that you need. And a child can't be counted as one of the 3. What if you started with 3 and then one of them died? You can still carry in the whole thing. You continue with how you started. What if 2 guys started and they made it too big? And the 3rd guy joined them. It doesn't help that there's a 3rd guy now. They still can only carry 4 amos, like they were before this guy came. And it's how you go into Shabbos, how your shavis, that's what counts, not who's there right now. Halacha Yud Daled. What if you have 3 people that are next to each other in their own little space? You have 3 of these next to each other, and each one's open to the next. The 2 outer ones are wider, and the one in the middle is narrower. So that means the 2 on the side have space continuing on the other side. There's one in each one. They also become like one big shayara, a nice land called second they can carry throughout those entire spaces. But if the middle one was wide, and the ones on the sides were shorter, so it's like the middle one is sticking out, as things sticking out either side. Then it's like its own rishos. A nice land called sarkin. If there's 1 in each, then you don't give them the whole space. Then each one only has 2 sa'ah in his space. Down to basic sign or less. If you had one on either side and two in the middle, or two on either side, or two on either side and one in the middle, then nice thing called tzark, and then they are mitzdarif. Halacha tezvav. Now this is even easier, talking about mechitzas themselves. If the wind will blow it down, or no wind will blow it down, it's not a mechitza. And if it's not a mechitza that's supposed to land there and sit there, it's not a mechitza. And a mechitza that's just there for privacy doesn't count. It has to be a mechitza that's making a new reshus. If it's not 10 tvachim high, that's not a true mechitza. You have already 5 from something that's already there, and you put a mechitza 5 on top. That's fine. The basic halacha that if there's more air than actual wall, it's not a mechitza. But if it's 50-50, it is mutaris, and it's mutal vachlei, but it's not process. As long as there's no space that's more than 10 amas, because that's mevatel mechitzas. But 10 exactly, that's like a door. And if there's a tzuras pesach, if there's something on top, make it like a doorway. Even if there's more than 10 enim of mechitza, it doesn't ruin the mechitza. Again, you kind of have more space than wall. If the breaks are 3 tvachim or more, then they're all mitzdarif to say that this part it's there's more space than wall. But if each break in the wall was less than 3, then it's even though there's more air than wall. Because we say that that gap doesn't exist. The gap is loved, and the mechitza on either side expands to fill that space. You made a mechitza out of just reeds, and he's less than 3 tvachim between each reed. So technically, what percentage of this is wall? What percentage of this is air? Maybe 10% is wall. It's very little, but the gaps are less than 2 tvachim. Or you did it from top to bottom, a rope like this, a rope like this, a rope like this. And there's no, there isn't 3 space. Even if it's just horizontal, like a chavalim, or erev b'leish or just vertical, like kanim. The Torah actually gave a kana asar, but the kana itself has to be 10. Or if the ropes are going horizontally, so that the top rope has to be 10 tvachim from the ground. It's never less than 10. We know this from Allah Yitaz. We said Tzuras HaPesach earlier. It could also just be a kana, and a kana. The 2 l'chayim, the 2 lachis, the 2 sides have to be 10 or more. And the one on top of them, even if it's not touching them, there's even a gap of many amas between them. As long as the lachis are 10, or is it Tzuras Pesach? And this shape, it has to be sturdy enough that you could actually attach a door to it, even if it's a straw door. What if it's Tzuras Pesach, but it's round on top? As long as before it starts curving, you have 10 tvachim, and it is a Tzuras Pesach. It's also good. The top doesn't have to be straight; it could be round. And if you made it from the side, ain't a klum. You don't have an entrance in the corner. It's supposed to be in the middle of the wall. Here the Maggid Mishnah says, this is based on Rabbi Goin, that taich is minat sad to mean the side of the actual wall. However, the Rashba says that doesn't make any sense. No matter where it is on the wall, it's a Tzuras HaPesach. Minat sad pasha means that the kana wasn't on top. The kana was on the side. If you have kana mikan, and the kosher kana be'emtza, it's not good. The kana has to be al gabeim. So that's a big machlekes as to what that means. You can make a mechitza out of anything, whether it's kalim or food or a person or animals, as long as they're tied up so they don't move. If the mechitza sort of ended up there on its own, it's kosher. And if you made it on Shabbos, it is a mechitza. it counts. Or nasas b'shkaga, and if it was done by accident, not bedafka mutla taltal b'beis Shabbos, it actually counts. You can make it a mixed rosh hashanah. But it can't be done with the metalpal himself involved. But if the person say, I'm making this mechitza on Shabbos to carry her, even if the guy who made it did it by accident, for sure if it was on purpose, even if the guy who made it didn't have in mind to carry, but someone else had in mind to carry, is what the Rambam is saying, but you can't carry them. Gimel, mutalas mechitza shabbos adam Shabbos. You can make a mechitza out of people. They stand one next to the other. But they can't know that they're there to make a mechitza. And the person who wants to use them as a mechitza can't be the one to put them there. Someone else has to put them there with him not knowing. To finish off. You have a tree that's has shade over the earth. If the branches are not dipping as low as 3 tefachim within the earth, so you add some straw or whatever, and you tie it down to the ground so a wind wouldn't blow it away. You can turn the tree itself into an eruv, into a mechitzas. As long as the tree's space is less than Beis Hasayim. If it's more, then you're getting back to the 4 amas. It's not a
So if you have like a fine
space.